We're going to go to Darien's alma mater here. We're going to go to Clemson. Right now at our partner BetRivers, Clemson is minus 152 to win this conference. So for non-bettors out there, that basically means they're a runaway favorite. There are only 2 other teams in the entire country in power conferences that you have to lay a minus number, meaning you have to bet more money than you'll win to place a bet on them to win their conference. It's Alabama and Ohio State. I mean, powerhouses that have sort of historically year after year won those conferences. And Clemson is definitely that, as you know very well, Darien. I mean, we're talking 10 games or more have been won by this program 11 years in a row. The problem is last season was the most losses Clemson's had since 2014. You were there up close and personal. What's the biggest difference of why Clemson did run into some struggles last year? And do you think that's going to carry into this season?
Last year was the perfect storm. And you speak of like a big thing, like a mantra in our program is the 10 wins in the last 11 seasons. And I was a part of senior class. I almost put that in jeopardy because Coach Swinney says he loves every team. But I promise you, I feel like he would have disowned us if we didn't get that 10th win this year. And we got it the last game, the bowl game. So, I mean, it could have went either way. And Hack said something earlier. He thinks this season will be his most challenging year. I think last year was Coach Swinney's most challenging year. As well, a down year at Clemson's 10 wins, I feel like a lot of teams will pay big money to have a down year. And so on that point, I think last year could have easily been a 6-6 year. We were 4-3. We lost to Pitt. And that locker room, I haven't felt like that. I was there for 6 years, way too long. I haven't felt like that in my entire career. And so I think last year, his leadership, the culture of the program was on display more than ever because a lot of teams folded in those moments when they were 4-3 and then like the season went downhill. We kind of rallied back together, got our 10th win, wasn't able to accomplish a lot of goals, but neither here nor there. And so I think going to this year, we look at a lot of reasons we struggle. Obviously, quarterback play is the biggest point. Offensive line, there was no cohesion, no depth there. Receivers, we couldn't stay healthy. The defense has been the bright spot. And I think the momentum from last year is going to be multiplied with this year's team. I mean, they might not they might. They have the best defensive line, defensive ends, and D tackles in the country. They're too deep. I feel like all those guys will play on Sunday. Maybe let's mark it down here. We'll do the research in like a year or two. They're too deep. We'll play on Sundays at some point. They'll get a shot. And then look at the running back room. I think they got 3 guys in there that are special. Like not just backups, like all 3 of those guys can play. You got Shipley, Kobe Pace, Phil Maffa. The biggest question mark is the quarterback situation. And I'll say this about DJ. Obviously did not live up to the hype of being a Heisman coming off his freshman year. But nobody in that team ever questions commitment. And so that's where I hope he can put it all together this year and be the player that it would be different too if nobody saw it. Bro, you do not go to Notre Dame and accidentally throw for 420 yards. You tell, I don't know if Hack can say that. As a quarterback, you don't accidentally do those things. You don't come back Boston College and rally back and win those games as a freshman. Like those aren't accidental things. You are a baller. And so hopefully this year, which we'd love to see, is him put it all together. But at the same time, Coach Swinney's got insurance this year. Last year, we didn't have that. You got Cade Klubnik coming in. You got his first transfer to portal. Hunter Johnson was a former 5-star. You got 3 5-stars in that quarterback room. And so somebody's got to get the job done. I think that's the biggest question mark going to this year. And it's another Clemson championship in my opinion. I think last year makes it fun for the ACC to see Pitt win one, to see North Carolina State get a win over us. But I think it's Clemson all the way for sure.
That's the team seemed close last year too at times, right? They opened the season with a 7-point loss to the eventual national champion. So
we learned our lesson. Look, I don't know who makes these schedules. We win that game. I think a lot of things are different. That put a lot of ghosts in our head last year. You look at our schedule this year. I think we're starting out. We got Georgia Tech. We got a couple. I'm gonna say cakewalk games, but you know what I'm saying. Just get some momentum going. Like let's get
Momentum's
Hack, you said at the front that you're not necessarily buying that this door is closed for the middle pack teams to potentially sneak in and they can't compete with a team like Clemson this year. Is this just home cooking from Darien here?
No, I don't think it is. I think historically speaking, I mean, you could go back this is way before my time, Darien's time. I mean, this goes back into the 90s and 80s. Like, Clemson has historically always had an extremely talented roster.
Right.
And I think what Dabo has found success in is he's finally started to put these guys in really good situations consistently. He's had consistency within this program. And I think that has bred the success that they've had. And now the problem is when you set a standard like that and you have the dominance that you've had, especially when the Florida States and the Miamis, who traditionally have run the ACC, have been down, you got to prove it year in, year out. And I know that you said a 10-win season, you know, a lot of programs would pay a lot of money for that. I completely agree with you. But when you've had such a stronghold on a conference that has been down, historically speaking, to what the other talent within the pool has produced, that puts question marks. And the reason I said I think this year is going to be the biggest challenge for him is you lose defensive coordinator, you lose offensive coordinator, both of them take head jobs. The offense was the biggest question mark for that team in terms of consistency last year. You had the guys, you had the roster. What was different between DJ and Trevor? That just me watching and not being in the locker room. And I understand there's a lot of different dynamics. That was my biggest question mark. And then you have the strongest part of your team and your defense. The guy running the show leaves and takes the head job at Oklahoma. So that's where I think I trust the fact that the guys in the locker room and the standard, and I think Dabo is a big culture guy, like you said. I trust the fact that that's going to carry them through into this year, but ultimately you have to wait and see. When you don't have for sure's and consistencies like that, I think that leaves room for hesitancy in terms of how you evaluate what's to come. They got the talent. They got the guy running the show who's done it, who has a standard set. Can you carry it on with new guys at the helm at different positions and different roles within your coaching staff? I think Dabo can do it, but I want to see it, right? I'm a show me guy. I'm a show me state guy. Dude. Like I want to see it. You know what I mean? So I have the utmost confidence in him, but I think it's still out there.
On that note, for his legacy, even though I feel like he's solidified, he's a GOAT in college football terms. But you look at his legacy, this last run has been with Coach Elliott and Coach Venables. I think if he can do what I believe like the program is set up to do, when he's capable of, I feel like this next run of him hiring new coordinators is really going to show his brilliance, in my opinion. I feel like the program is set to make this next leap.
And the funny thing you say that, I mean, the guy he studied under has been doing that the last 5 years down in Alabama. So I think that there's some ties to that. And I think that's a fantastic point. You see Saban year in, year out. He sets the standard. He has the program runs itself. And he's been able to just filter in offensive coordinators, defensive guys. Those guys leave and go take other jobs, but it's just been rinse and repeat, and everyone gets in line when they get in there. This year is Dabo's year to see if he can do that and make that turn. And I completely agree with you.
Hack, I want to loop back to DJ here, because from a quarterback perspective, obviously careers, they're both long and short, right? If you play 4 years in college as a 4-year starter, that can feel like a decade. But at the same time, you snap your fingers and it's done. You know very well there's ups and downs. Fan bases can be critical. They can be harsh, especially when you've shown it 1 year, and then maybe the team as a whole hits some obstacles, and maybe your plays part of that or not. But now there's a new face, and there's a highly touted new face, and it's a face that the coaching staff in Cade Klubnik is saying will play this season. They're saying it's DJ's job, but they are saying there will be opportunities for Cade to play. How does that element impact a quarterback mentally?
Well, I think that there's two directions that it can, and whichever direction you choose really tells what type of guy you have, if that makes sense. I think if I'm DJ going into this, I think his freshman year, he had opportunities to step in similar to Cade on his heels right now with Trevor. And to your point, Darien, I mean, went out and played fantastic, some stupid numbers against some really good teams and some really cool venues. And that ultimately set his expectations and his bar, right, what I believe, too high for somebody, when you look at the field of work that he actually did, it was what, 2-3 games his freshman year that he played?
Yeah, like two full games.
Yeah, so he played 2 full games his freshman year. That's a very small sample size to set the astronomical expectations, but that's the nature of the beast. That's the nature of college football in today's world, in today's society. People crave it, and ultimately, if you show something, you got to continue to do that.
Right.
I think for him, he just needs to get back to sticking to what got him there, trusting in himself, because obviously no one in their right mind will say DJ is not talented enough to do what he does. So
right.
I think there's got to be some cohesion with the offensive scheme in terms of putting him in positions to do what he does best. I think you have the flexibility at a place like Clemson where you can do that because you're not hindered by a lack of talent in really any position on the offensive the offensive side of the ball. So if I'm DJ, I'm focusing on that and control what you can control the controllables, go out when you get your chances, do what your coach should do and do what your talent allows you to do. And he cannot look over his shoulder. If he does, he's setting himself up for failure. He needs to continue to just keep his head down, stack those little wins day in, day out. And like I said, guy's got NFL first round talent. He
100%.
just has to stay in the process and prove it.
Yeah. And to your point on expectations, at this time a year ago, if you went to our friends at BetRivers and tried to place a futures bet on who to win the Heisman, DJ's odds were right in line, equal with Bryce Young. He was a bigger favorite than CJ Stroud was at this time last season. So, I mean, no one doubts the talent. He's got some work to do to get back up there. All right, we'll end the Clemson segment on this, guys. I'm going to give you 2 options. And again, this is back to the BetRivers prop. But
all right,
you either got to pick who wins this conference. Is it Clemson or is it the field? Darien, I think I know what your answer is going to be.
You said the field?
The field meaning any other team.
Anyone else.
Any other team in this conference but Clemson.
Look, I'm trying to not be biased. I obviously have the Clemson jersey hanging right behind me. But, I mean, we're talking facts here. Like, I believe the program, the precedent, the culture is, if anything, last year I feel like it makes the AC more exciting. But it's been dominance up until that point. It was 6 in a row. I thought last year would be the 7th. It obviously was not. I think Pittsburgh won it. They lose 2 of their best players. They lose Kenny Pickett, Jordan Addison. Obviously, come back with a good defense. Wake Forest was in the running. They lose Sam Hartman. NC State is the only one I think that could. Obviously, they're on our side of the division. That's going to be a game. October 1st is going to be, in the way both of those schedules looking. NC State, man, I don't know who wrote their schedule out, but they're trying to be undefeated for sure. I think that, let me pull up their schedule real quick. Bro, they're playing like, hold on. Those first games, they got East Carolina, Charleston Southern, Texas Tech, UConn, and it's Clemson. I'm like, dang, if you was just trying to get ready for Clemson, just say that. But Clemson is my pick. I believe the defense is going to be one of the best in the country. The running back room, field, receivers, if they can stay healthy, it could be some of the most talented guys that come through the program. The biggest question mark to me, even though people question DJ, is the offensive line. Last year, we had no competitive depth. And that is, I think it's going to serve so many of those guys well this year. You got a lot of cohesion amongst the starting 5, but a lot of young competitive depth in that O-line room. And I think it made DJ see some ghosts at times. So I'm going with Clemson. I think it's going to be the 7th out of the 8 the past 8 years. Another Clemson championship. That's what ACC stands for. So Clemson's my pick.
Same question to you, Hack. Like, I gotta hear. Is it the field or is it Clemson?
No, I think you make a great point there, Darien. I think early on you're going to kind of figure out. I think both teams' schedules do set up well for them to that October 1st being kind of at least a divisional and if not a conference defining moment. I do think that Clemson ultimately has the roster, and I think they have the leader in Dabo to right the ship, get everyone rowing in the right direction, and get it done this year. That's not to knock the other teams. I think that there's some cultures that are being defined, NC State being one of them. I'm really excited to see what happens down at Miami, because it would be great to have them back on the big stage of college football.
It would be, man. Like them Florida State, like you want them to be good, you know?
I'm telling you, man, it's better for the health and wealth of college football. So I think, this year, I think it's going to be Clemson. But I think that there's some really good developing things happening within the conference, coming off of what I think have been a few lackluster years, comparatively speaking,
Agreed.
in terms of depth of the conference.